Hi, and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at a rather more obscure instrument. It's a 1675 violin from Giovanni Maria del Bussetto. Now, Bussetto is an interesting character. He was a Cremonese maker, active between 1660 and 1680, or 1670 and 1680. So this in itself is odd because which one was it? The fact is, I couldn't even find a birth date for this maker. In some books, I found captions like Bussetto, Giovanni Maria, Cremona, 17th century, a masterpiece of the Cremonese age, heralding the likes of Stradivari. And in other books, I found things that said Cremona, 17th century, a maker of very little importance. So just by trying the strings like this, I can already tell that this instrument has a lot more depth than the one that I just tried, which was the Pilastri, 1923. So this really begins to beg the question, what makes a violinist? The player or the violin? We've had several comments poking around the edges of this idea, so we might as well just address them now. So look, a good violinist can make an okay violin sound good. A great violinist can make an okay violin sound great, but it will always be limiting. So all of the skills that a violinist has cultivated over decades of study come out in these incredibly subtle little nuances. I can tell you on this video, oh, the sound is just too wide in the higher registers of the lower strings. There's no bottom to the sound at all. I can't get into the strings, all manner of things. Or I could say, and I have said, oh, this instrument is incredible. The bow cuts through the strings like room temperature butter. The sound is crystalline and pure, and it just makes me want to cry. And when the sound is like that, it just makes my job easier. I don't have to fight the instrument at all to pull out all these nuances that I want. The violin and the violinist are working in tandem flawlessly. But then there's the flip side. Sometimes fighting with an instrument and then making it your own, as ruthless as that sounds, is really worth it. A violin feels like a living, breathing thing under your fingers. And when you have to work at that relationship, which I have done, you're able to appreciate it just that much more. And then of course there are violins that are just utter crap and you'd rather just put it away. But from the side of the luthier, just creating a violin or any instrument is a work of art in and of itself. Most of the time, luthiers don't really play the instrument they are crafting, or at least they're not able to control it in the same way that a professional musician would. They have their own very specialized skill set and art form that we as musicians have absolutely no conception of, and that is to create literally with their hands a beautiful, interesting instrument that will go out into the world and find itself a partner. And in some cases, this goes on for hundreds of years. Just stop to think about that. The oldest violin that we've reviewed, which I believe is the Dasalo, and that's almost 500 years old. That's insane. How many people, how many players, and how many countries and concerts playing different music? How much have these violins, these works of art, communicated through people's hands? Anyway, I digress like crazy. So let's get back to the Bussetto. It seems that he was a Cremonese luthier. And from all the instruments of his that I dug up, he was active from around 1670 to 1680. His instruments are recognizable through the distinctiveness of his F-holes and the sort of square outline he gave to his violins. So some of them are fantastic and some of them are less inspired and don't look or sound that great. One of them, though, did even make it into Menuhin's collection of instruments, so they have to be some sort of interesting. Menuhin's collection, by the way, was monumental. This is a collector and, of course, a tremendous player who was gifted a Stradivari at the age of 12 and flirted with other Strads, Del Jesus, Guarneris, and other modern instruments throughout the rest of his life. He even sold one of his Strads, the Soil, to Perlman in the 50s. who, by the way, has his own Strad and El Gesù and Bergonzi in his own collection. But it's really no wonder that Menuhin had a Bussetto, because they are interesting little creatures with a wide, penetrating sound. So let's take a look at this instrument in particular. I had to wheedle it out of the curator for obvious reasons, because CHIMEI has such a fantastic collection of famous instruments that sometimes looking at the less well-known ones, well, often they're not as nice as the Strads, but they really do deserve to be looked at, and Bussetto was one of the ones that we insisted on. It has a really, really deep tone that feels like it just dives into the belly of the instrument. So it has this wonderfully interesting sound to it, but I think the only thing is that as this deep sound dives into the instrument, it just sort of pools there on the bottom and doesn't really seem to resonate in the room as fully as it could. I'll have to look at more of his instruments in the future to compare their sounds, because I think this violin is probably some of his best work. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe and leave us a comment. We'll be back with another violin soon, so until next time. Just a note on the aside. So this instrument is tuned probably to 438 or something like that at the moment. I'm used to at least a 441 or a 442, so my ear automatically tries to play in the tune that I'm hearing in my head, and this is a little lower. But that's an aside. This is a much richer instrument than the one that I was just playing. At the same time, though, I find the depth still isn't as, it's not as dark as it could be. It's got a I don't really know what to say about this one. Okay.
Can I see it?
Mm-hmm.
The back. The sign.